For this one, I'm doing pencil, and I'll be using a 2H, a 2B, and a 5B. You don't have to use those exact leads, but just try to try to have one that's a light lead, medium lead, and a soft lead. So 2H or lighter, 2B around there, or a 5B or darker from there, and an eraser, of course. And you can use any type of paper. I'm just going to be using this paper I have right here, and I just made these little cards right here because I'll be doing 3 different lessons. So let me get this started for you. So I'm going to be starting with the dirt ground first, and the very first thing you do, doesn't matter what you're drawing, always find your perspective line. So horizon line first, right? So just do it very lightly, and then your vanishing point, and just draw some very, very light lines. You may not see this, but just on your own paper, just so you can get an idea of where everything vanishes to in the center there, and this is your horizon line. Everything vanishes to there, and just do it very lightly, so that way you just get an idea of how everything's going to appear in your drawing and disappear into the distance. So first thing I'm going to do is very lightly with the 2H, I'm just going to start to just draw on a few little elements here. Maybe just like a little tree here. Very lightly. I'm not pressing down on it. I'm just almost using the weight of the pencil to draw my lines. And your tree can look any way you want it to look. You don't even have to draw on a tree. You can draw on a barn or a house or nothing at all. It's up to you. So maybe have a little rock over here as well. Just draw the geometric shape of it. And maybe a few little tiny rocks out here. Being these rocks going in the distance are the ones that are closer to you are going to appear bigger, obviously, right? So then we got a bunch of little ones over here, and they could be big, just that they're far away, so they just appear small. So now I'm going to just draw in some areas here, just for when I do my shading. Just so the ground, the dirt ground, has different coloration, because it's not going to be the same shade all the way through, right? So you can just use this as a guide here, really. And at this point, you can maybe make your horizon line a bit darker. If you do follow this, you draw this along. If you're doing this your first time, do what I'm doing, draw it on a cardstock for practice before you go ahead and do your whatever it is you're drawing, whatever. So that way you get the hang of it a little first before you go ahead and draw your project or whatever, right? So now I'm going to just start shading in some areas here. So I was using the 2H for that. I'm going to switch over to the 2B now. And I'm just kind of holding it on an angle like this, almost flat. Flip back to my 2B here. Just put some light shading on this rock here. Maybe try to establish a light source, so that maybe your light source is here. Alright. So that'll be your light source over here. So, and then your shadow, obviously, your darker areas is going to be like this on the opposite sides of your rocks. So now you can go back in and just solidify your rocks, your trees, and everything like that in your drawing here. Draw in these areas here that were light, and just darken up those areas there, just to give it kind of a natural ground appearance. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going back with the 2H and just drawing in some little pebbles and small rocks and things like that on the ground. And just try to be very, very random with it, but keep them spread apart in the foreground, and as you get towards the middle ground, you can make them smaller and bring them closer together. If you want, you can even use your finger or a blending stick or whatever, and you can just sort of soften it up, just like that, eh? And just try to go the same direction, all right? So I go back with my 2B here. Just draw in some more little ground areas and try to go around these pebbles. And leave some light areas as well. That's very important to have light areas and dark areas, and again, where your light source is, so keeping that in mind with any shadow you may have in your drawings with your rocks, or your trees, or your whatever else. Go back with my 5B, my dark one here. And you can go back in afterwards and draw some dark pebbles with the 5B if you like. Just make little, almost like little dashes and dots off the horizon. Unless you want to have larger rocks, but just do that so that it just keeps that image of perspective of everything going into the horizon, right? And then make ovals for your pebbles or small rocks in the foreground. So that's very crude, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I'll switch to the next one, which will be drawing. I'll draw a grassy field for you. So here I'm going to be drawing a grassy field, and doesn't matter what type of paper you're going to use. And I have a 2H, a 5B, and a 2B. Try to have 3 pencils, a light lead, a dark lead, and a medium lead for your drawing here, right? So, very first thing to do when you draw anything, obviously, is to establish your horizon line and your vanishing point. So I'm going to put in my horizon line here, and you can just go lightly to start, and then I'm just going to assume everything vanishes in the center, and just for guide I'm going to draw these lines. Just go very lightly, if you can even see that or not, and just start to sort of pencil in the shape of your subject. It could be an island, or it could be just a field, a small field area, or whatever, right? So this is going to be my work area here. And you can kind of get an idea of the height of your grass in the foreground, the middle ground, the background. So my grass is like this in the foreground, tall grass. And then in the middle ground, about this height. And in the background, just very, very small, like little ticks almost, right? And you can put something in there. You can put like maybe like a rock or whatever if you wanted to. Maybe a big rock here like this, poking out of the grass. Doesn't matter. Or you can do a tree stump if you wanted to. Yeah, so like with anything, you got to lay out your drawing to start, right? You don't want to just jump in randomly and not know what it's going to look like when it's done. So you want to take your lightest pencil and just plan out what you're drawing, right? Now we got that there. So I'm going to take my first thing, my darkest, my lead. I'm going to take my 5B. I'm going to start to just draw in some lines like this, which is basically the grass, the tall grass, right? And I should have done this before. I'm going to just put some tape on the back of my drawing like this, just so I'm not having to hold it down with my right hand, and I'm left-handed, so it's a good idea. So I can hold it there, and I don't have to worry about it moving around. I don't have to hold it down there. I should have done that to begin with. Being that I'm left-handed, I'm trying to just keep my hand as much as possible out of the screen, so I'm trying to work this way. If you're right-handed, you're going to maybe go this way, if that's what you're most comfortable with. But my reason is mostly just to keep my hand out of the camera, really. Maybe wear a glove or something, because it is, when it does smear, like you can see I kind of smeared it there, but that's going to be okay. And you can see I'm going like in the curling in one direction, so it's like you can say that the wind is always blowing, let's say out of the east, right? And just keeps it consistent, right? Go back again and just draw in some darker lines here. So I'm going to be pressing a bit harder now. If you don't have a glove, you can always just use like a scrap piece of paper, right? And just put your hand on it like this. It's so you're not smearing your drawing. You got to sort of think about that as you're going, because it's very easy to accidentally smear your hand if you're not thinking, or you're moving something around on your desk or whatever, right? Or you can even hold if you draw like this, then you can draw it out like this, right? Just hold your pencil up from your hand, right? And try to keep your hand off the paper as much as possible. I'm pressing a little bit harder this time, and I'm going in the same direction with my blades of grass. Because the 5B is a very dark, soft lead, you're going to have to sharpen it quite a bit. I'm going to have to sharpen it right now, actually, and I have an electric sharpener with me here. So I'm using the same lead. I'm going back a third time in layers, but the first time I was a little bit light, and then the second time I pressed down a bit more, and right now I'm pressing down a lot more. And this is sort of like give the illusion of a different shades of green, or different light and shadow in the grass here. 2H. And actually no, sorry, my 2B. So I'm going to start drawing the grass in the middle ground, which is going to appear to be lighter, right? See how I'm overlapping with the foreground? Because you don't want to like suddenly go like this, because it's not going to look natural, right? So you're going to want to do a little overlapping of your growth, of your grass, just to keep it looking a little bit natural, right? forgive me my hand and being in the way. I just like to, I'll pull my hand out every once in a while and just sort of pause for a second so you can kind of see what I've done. And just keep holding my pencil at the middle there instead of up like this. I usually draw like this a lot, but I'll try to hold it out like this for you. And I kind of rotate my pencil as I go, because when you're drawing, you're dulling out the one side of it, right? So I can kind of flip it over and use the other side of the lead, because it kind of like, you won't have to go back to the pencil sharpener as often by doing that. Again, reminding yourself not to put your hand too much on your drawing, if you shouldn't at all, really, so you don't smear it, right? So if you got to put a note on a sticky and put it beside you, just saying keep your hand off your drawing, just as a reminder, because it's easy to kind of, you get into the zone with these types of drawing and you forget yourself. You got your headphones on and you're just listening to the music, and before you know it, you're like going smear, right? Always good to have a photo references with you. And you don't even have to go outside. You can just go into Google and just type in grassy field and go to Google Images and just copy a bunch of images. Obviously, you're not using them for your own personal use. You're just using those as reference, so it's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Any copyright in that sense, right? Again, if you use your Google Images, if you're using those images and you're reproducing them, like you're taking those photos or someone else's artwork or whatever, and you're putting them in your own online or whatever like that, well, then that's a copyright issue, right? But if you're just using it for reference, they're kept off camera, or you're not using those images in a part of your artwork, then that's okay. So now let me go here. I'm just gonna, I got my big rock here. It's going very lightly like this. And here, and then there's this tree stump here, right? I'm not going to go into heavy detail with these rocks and this tree stump. It's just, again, just things you can put in your drawing. This is an example, right? So now I'm using my lighter lead. And my grass lines are going to be smaller, or appear to be smaller, because they're going off into the horizon, right? So when you draw your grass around either your rock, your tree stump, or whatever you got here, just have it sort of interact with that object, right? So your grass may be growing up where it comes to the tree stump here, right? So it's going to maybe change the direction slightly. I'm going to go back with my darker lead just to show a bit of because you get a bit of a shadow area here. So if you have your light source up in the sky, right, everything behind the rock is going to be slightly darker. So I'll just use a darker lead here for my grassy area behind this rock here. And the same thing with this tree stump, right? Just remember when you're doing your drawings, you're working in layers. So when you draw your first couple layers, don't be too hard on yourself if you don't like the way it looks. Just finish it anyways, and then by your fourth, your fifth, your sixth layer, you'll start to maybe you'll see the end result by that point. But you just gotta just let yourself finish what you started, right? And again, don't just stop because you don't like how it's looking, right? So I'm going very, very light, almost just using the weight of the pencil here. Shorter lines because it's further away, but I'm still going, the bending's still the same direction. But obviously, because I'm left-handed, that has an effect on that, because if you're right-handed, you may be like, going this way, right? So that's okay. As long as it's all consistent. And finally, I'm just going to go back here and darken this up a bit here. And if you want, you can even do this a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a softer shadow texture. But try not to do that here.